The problems I predicted, I reset my alarm clock for 6:30 so that I'd have a little bit more time in the morning with all the things that I'm going to have to be doing in the next little while to stay healthy and stuff. Um, and immediately, Jerry shows up and starts interfering with my sleep at night, starts wandering around my apartment, like just walking circles around my apartment building, and all this kind of stuff. And was trying to keep me awake last night. Now, the drugs that they've got me on, I wasn't happy about what he was doing, but I was coping with it better. I was just kind of concerned about what the impacts would be of being exposed to whatever he was doing. And so we're having an issue here in Bloomington, and it's not just Bloomington because Dave followed me to Valpo. He was in Indianapolis. He was in Tennessee. He was everywhere I was going to go. And because of my brain damage and other issues, I was willing to smoke marijuana because it was an anti-anxiety thing. It's legal in 24 states now. It's being used medically in a in a peer-reviewed kind of acceptable sort of way. And I was using it in that manner, but I had to associate with bad people in order to get it, have it. And that allowed me to be a little closer to my son. But then he wanted to do something, and we ended up getting separated for a while. So I was thinking about that one of the things that we used to agree on was the American Indian idea of not reciting things you don't understand, which is contrary to a lot of the teaching system in Asia, in which you recite things you don't understand until you've memorized them, gotten used to the sounds, gotten used to the words, gotten used to the flow of the speech, and then gradually over time people tell you this means this means that. You might be allowed to apply your own translations to things, and you might also so it's because the brain, the American Indians, they didn't have metal, they didn't have tile roofs, they didn't have a lot of things, and their learning system was very high threshold. So some of them were very smart, but they couldn't communicate with other people who were not. Whereas in Asia, they had a hierarchical system a structured hierarchical system in which there were some people who were very smart, and there were people who were a little bit less smart, and there were people who were a lot less smart, and they all coordinated with each other, more or less. And then they had other kinds of things. So, there were probably people like this all over the world, like the American Indian. It's just the indigenous point of view is, if I don't understand that, I'm not going to do it. So I've learned to use the Sanskrit dictionary, but I also, and I know that when the Toltecs got here 1,000 years ago, they introduced the idea that you don't know what you know and you don't know. And so they did bring in some of this reciting things they don't understand. Some of the songs is a song that has different meanings to different people, and the grandfathers tell you the meaning, the grandmothers tell you the meaning, and maybe you don't discuss the meaning with other people, and therefore you're not taught the meaning of it. But there is some discussion, definitely, because it's said in this context and not in other contexts. And so, anyway, I want to work with my son is like a teapot. I mean, like a vase. He's like a fragment. He's also a fragment of the soul of my guru, but he hasn't, having been male, he has the strength to avoid the circumstances in which the markings that he got were so extreme that he won't be reunited as one person. Now, that could change at any time, but it probably won't. But one of the things is that he is a vessel that is hardened for a purpose, that when it is under pressure, it makes noises of various kinds, it has feelings of different kinds, and it stains atoms in different ways, stains and bends atoms in different ways. But it has to have intake. He is influenced by intake. His vessel is influenced by intake. What is around there to grab. So that's where me and my flexibility has reduced, but I think I had so much of it to begin with that even reduced, it's probably increased more on him, more than him. And this has been some of the arguments that we've had, that I like, I know that I can move across here, and that he's like, I'm not going to do that. I don't understand why this big honking man can't go across that territory and stuff like that. And he's just like, nope. Other times, I had this dream about him night before last, that he was just like driving into rivers. And I never knew if we were going to be submerged or if we were going to ford it, because sometimes it happened one way and sometimes it happened the other way. The dream ended when I was saying something about something about a Christmas tree, and then he was saying something about busking, and I said, I think busking is illegal now. And there was this woman, she was going to fight with me, but I wouldn't throw the first punch, so she gave up. And we were at a jeweler's, and they were, I was looking at this clasp that was really neat. It said, it's really odd to see somebody who looks at the clasp so much. And so, well, without the clasp, it doesn't stay on. And if the clasp is part of the design, too. And this was a well-made little clasp, but I don't know how to make it. I don't have the motor skills to make anything like that. So we're looking for a clasp person, and I said, I'm sorry, but my motor skills just aren't good enough. But someone who could be passionate about clasps. That was my dream. And there was, we were driving across a golf course because nobody cared, because they were going to turn it into homeless camping. And it was a pretty intense dream. But when I woke up in the morning, I was like really depressed, because I was like, you know, how am I going to run into him? And then I think he passed me on a bicycle, but so you never know, because he's got all these people around here that look just like him, and every once in a while he can borrow their situation for a minute. And then there's other things where parts of his aspects go into other people. So, but Jerry and them were talking about him being 40 miles away. There's this guy that's interfering with everybody, trying to enjoy their harassment of me. and he's going to be 40 miles away, which I think means Owen County. And it's kind of a long drive to the Freedom Farm. And so Jerry was harassing me all last night, and they think that he'll eventually give up. But I know he's not an ordinary person. I think he's an emanation of Benzra and Vairocana and stuff like that, that these non-ordinary people do non-ordinary things, but they can also be incredibly stubborn, and they're not ordinary people.